technology, and cultural opportunities to enrich, empower, and educate. Statement of notice. The May 15, 2013 meeting of the Middletown Library, Public Library Board of Trustees is called to order. Adequate notice of this meeting is published in the Asbury Park Press on January 29, 2013, and in the Independent on January 30, 2013, and posted in the library and at Town Hall on May 10, 2013, in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, PI 1975, C231. Roll call. Mr. Siebert.
Present.
Mr. Martin.
Present.
Ms. Green. Here. Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Cordiano.
Here.
Ms. Wilson. Here. Mr. Shivitz.
Here.
Mr. Kansas. He is going to be away. Mr. McCumber.
Here.
Ms. O'Neill here, and Ms. Latona absent. I don't know how this looks to fly.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
My apologies, we're going to go slightly out of order on the agenda tonight. We will be having a quick executive session and returning to open session in approximately 10-15 minutes. And we'll begin. The Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10-46, etc., allows for the exclusion of the public from a portion of the public meeting on certain matters which might endanger the public interest where risk of deprivation of individual rights are discussed. And the Board of Trustees of Middletown Township Public Library wishes to discuss the following matters in a non-public closed meeting, the resulting discussion being made public when a proper conclusion has been reached and there is no longer a need for confidentiality. Pending or anticipated negotiations concerning a collective bargaining agreement with the CWI, any pending, anticipated litigation or contract negotiations other than collective bargaining negotiations in which the board is or may become party or any matter falling within attorney-client privilege to the extent confidentiality is required in order for the attorney to exercise his or her ethical duties as an attorney, and also any matter involving employment, appointment, termination, or of employment and conditions of employment, evaluation, and discipline of any specific employee, unless that individual employee's request or employee's request in writing the matter be discussed at a public meeting. Now, therefore, it be resolved, the board will hold a closed session, executive session, immediately in a conference room located in Middletown Township Public Library, New Jersey. Is anticipated closed session will not last longer than 10-15 minutes. The board will be returning to open session following.
So does that constitute a motion?
No, somebody needs to make a motion. I'll make a motion.
A motion?
Who's motion? Motion. You second?
Second? Second. Vivian seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstained? Okay, we will now go into
We'll wait for Ms. Pence.
Roll calls.
We'll wait for Ms. Pence.
You've already done 2, 3. This will be your third roll call tonight. Sorry, we have to take roll call. We do. Just lose someone.
Okay.
We're
now
on.
that the library is back in open session, I'll take a roll call. Mr. Siebert.
Present.
Mr. Monahan.
Here.
Mr. Green. Here. Mr. Nelson.
Here.
Mr. Cordiano.
Here.
Ms. Wilson. Here. Mr. Shivitz.
Here.
Mr. Kansas. Mr. McCumber.
Here.
Ms. O'Neill. Yes. Okay. Public session on agenda items. The board encourages public participation. Individuals wishing to address the board shall be recognized by the presiding officer and shall give their name, address, the group, if any, that they represent. Each speaker is asked to speak no more than 5 minutes and limit their remarks to items on the meeting agenda. The board may not respond to questions during the public participation portion. Is there anyone who wishes to speak?
The President just had a quick phone call he had to take.
Okay.
So
Shall we
you
proceed?
can proceed.
Okay. Okay, there being no public present, that session is closed. We'll move on to approval of minutes. We have several meeting minutes to approve. The first would be the meeting of the, well, let's go in reverse order. April. The April regular meeting, that was April 17th, 2013. And are there questions, corrections, additions?
I wasn't at this meeting, but looking at the format here, it looks like the last two bullet points on your records report don't belong in the records report. Just the formatting issue.
Yes, I believe in I was giving an oral report, and it was a follow-up to comments I made in the finance portion that I would like to address it later with respect to the salary and wages budget. So it really wasn't part of the director's report. And then the next one was a matter of explanation regarding the implementation of existing policy.
Is there any discussion?
Is there a motion to approve these minutes?
Yeah, motion to approve. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Abstain.
Abstain from Dave. Okay, the second piece also relating to April 17th was the executive session minutes, which are before you, and what we do with these is they remain confidential until such time that the need for confidentiality has passed. And let's see. Other questions here or move to approve?
Motion to approve.
Is there a second? I don't have an official copy, because Bobby wasn't here today.
All in
so-
favor?
Abstain.
Any against? Abstain?
Okay, abstentions from Monahan and Shivitz. Are you abstaining?
Seven?
April 17th.
Oh, April 17th, I'm sorry.
So you don't abstain or?
I'm not abstaining.
We cannot hear you abstaining.
Oh, God.
Just abstain.
Good level, so you speak up a little bit.
I apologize.
Okay, the next minutes are of the special board meeting, which was held on May 7th. And we had a short executive session then too. So let's do first the special board minutes.
Any comments?
So we move to accept. Vivian?
So, second.
I second.
And Larry seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Abstentions?
Abstain.
Okay. And then the executive session from that same date, May 7th.
Motion to accept.
Okay, so you make some motion to accept.
Second.
Nelson is a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Abstain.
She's been on when she gets these. yet. We had a big delivery, and we, earlier in the year, for which we did pay for. And we returned it way down. And now I think we're out of that season, and we should, the answer to your question is, when you get these reports by email, you're not getting anything that's highlighted. So I don't know if that's something that is complicated in terms of, asking you questions about whether the most current bills to pay from the overview page. And I don't have an original either. Mine was printed from the computer, so I'm missing the highlighting.
This may be a silly question. When we turn this building over to the Board of Ed, can we read it in the oil tank and have it reimbursed as what's left?
I don't know what mine. I'll make it over in minutes. That was suggested. It's a pretty big oil tank.
Well,
So it does,
no, but it's going to be substantial amount of money. If you do it when
I think I reported at the last meeting that I had visited the building with representatives of the Board of Ed and Tony Mercatante, and I may have reported on that at the special meeting. And they had some engineer people with them, building people, took a very close look at it, both downstairs and upstairs. And it was just very, very casual, very informal, and did not seem to be concerned that we had not removed, we had cleaned it out. I have had, as I mentioned in my director's report, there has been a follow-up from the Seabright people, and they are still interested, and I'm going to be going there, it's either tomorrow or next Thursday, for them to take a look. Okay, are there questions on the financials? There are 4 documents which we normally pass as a group, that is like a move to accept the financial reports
You should. So,
with the roll call.
the consent agenda on A, B, C, and D?
Yes.
Okay. Someone needs to move that. Move to accept it.
So that's Mr. Monahan.
I second.
Dave? Okay, for this is a roll call vote. Mr. Siebert?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Breen?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Portiana?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson? Mr. Shivitz? I don't have to call him if he can't just do it since he's not here.
Not if he's not here.
Okay, it passes unanimously. Okay, now we're up to correspondence. And in your packet, there was a copy of an email from a resident of Lincroft asking if we could reopen the branches for 1 day a week. I know this was a question that was asked of us at the time in January, February, and March when we were discussing these things. Typically, if somebody sends me a written email, I like to respond, in light form. So I would get back to her and say that this was duly discussed and that decision had been made and was going to happen. And then there was an email from Ms. Bound. I don't think that was in your packet, but I have a copy here, and I think it was.
It was emailed directly.
It was emailed directly to you, and when she was requesting that we consider changing the meeting date of our board because of conflicts within the town for such regular meetings of the planning board, the Board of Ed, and the Environmental Commission, which she was asking for your reconsider. And again, I will get back to her in writing with a message. You want to consider that? Maybe we don't do that at the correspondence. So that's just acknowledging that you received those two letters.
Susan, what is a proctoring test?
What's a proctoring test?
Yeah, you have here that you could, you might
Do you want to ask me under my report?
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Okay, and Brock gets before next.
I'd like to thank those people that came out to the special meeting last week. Although my proposal was accepted, I appreciate all the discussion and your attendance and the other things we discussed. There, a couple of meetings ago, we discussed the trustee survey that I saw when I went to the conference in was that February? Susan's going to email it out to you. I don't necessarily want, I want you guys to look at it, go through it, jot down answers. I'm not going to ask for them back. It's simply for you guys to look at and, again, just kind of get a feel as to your answer. I answered the questions whether or not you're living up to your expectations of what being a trustee is. As Susan mentions in her report, the rental collection is doing well. I think that was a good decision by us, and obviously the next few months will either begin to back that up, or we can reevaluate at that point. So it's nice to see that when you make decisions, things actually go the way you think they're going to happen, and good things come to them. So I think we keep going forward, we reevaluate, and continue to do more things like that, or not necessarily in the revenue stream division, but certainly be mindful of the times and the most up-to-date technology that's out there.
Any questions for the President? Okay, on my report, I was able to prepare my usual written report, so I will take any questions and I will address anyone's question about what is proctoring. Well, it is pretty much a phenomenon related to distance learning, where students are taking online classes, and when it comes to exam time, their tests need to be monitored. It's like being a monitor for the test. Certify that the individual has taken it under the parameters of the educational institution that is administering the test. Sometimes it's a written test, more often now it's an online test. And there are a number of online universities or colleges, as well as online programs, distance programs from Rutgers and just about every college around these days. And so they don't require them to come to campus for any class time or for the testing. And as a result of the increase in distance learners in education, there have been many more requests made of the library for librarians. In fact, they come in with the tests and say, my college said that you can go to your public library and a librarian will private the test for you. And we've been inundated with it, and like librarians on the staff have concerns about the timing, about the appropriate supervision and the demands of fulfilling the demands of the university or the organization, and whether or not it's a service that we want to continue to provide for individuals who are not residents of our community, because they are increasing in number, increasing demand all the time. And we know that you can have these tests proctored at there's learning centers, there are commercial places, like you can go to get computer access. There are places that will provide these services, and they're fee-based services.
How much time of a librarian's time does it take?
Several hours for each test.
So my question is, we should be charging residents too, not just non-residents.
Well, we have not made a recommendation to the board. We are still gathering some information about the number and the time and the cost involved. Many times the test is longer than the time that the librarian is on their desk duty, which means that either has to be transferred to somebody else or it continues in their off-desk time. So we're discussing it. Actually, this is a staff-generated idea that we could consider doing. Is there interest in charging residents?
We're
A lot of our residents
We're
are
charging the
okay.
university. Whatever the university that's providing the service, charge them.
Oh, they would not,
Yeah.
no, they would not pay that.
It's
No.
basically the person is not going to.
We've also been looking around at what other libraries do. And other libraries, some libraries do charge, some libraries don't do it at all. And some are free, like us, we have a hybrid model.
Do we know what the county library does?
I beg your pardon?
Do we know what the county library does in Massachusetts?
I do not know if they were one of the ones we surveyed.
I mean, I think it's certainly something we should be watching carefully. I mean, it's that much of a drain on the staff.
How many times a week does it happen right now?
Oh, maybe it doesn't.
Now, I mean, is it possible to say we do this at one period or 2 periods a week, where it's like
I'm not
Saturday
sure.
morning at 9 o'clock will be available for whomever, and that's the time we'll proctor?
I'm not sure, but at this point, my impression is that it is dictated by the parameters of the institution, that the test has to be performed within a certain time frame and returned within a certain time frame. And so my impression from just seeing the envelopes come in and going out and, we have to sign off and certify them, that we are being a tool of the universities, and we don't really have control over the environment at this point. And that is one of the sticky points with the members of the staff, is that it seems like the students are approaching us as an on-demand service, and we don't like that. And whether we can control it, we're not quite certain yet. But it's one of the things we'll be studying.
I'd like to think maybe you could get some more information, and maybe make a recommendation to you as to how to proceed.
I think we're at the point where we could come to some conclusions and make some recommendations by June. Any other questions on the report?
Along those same lines, in your collection management section, you indicate that we are purchasing about $10,000 worth of books for the school summer reading program. Have we ever attempted to get reimbursement from the school board for these amounts?
No,
I think that's something we should follow up on. If we're doing this for the benefit of the school board, they certainly have a huge budget as compared to ours.
talking about a $10,000 amount, something to consider.
Larry, I will tell you that certainly that could be brought up. Cindy may have a comment on that. It has over the years morphed into something that actually has a little public confusion regarding it, because the demand for the availability of a copy for an item that is required by the school has almost now, it's like it's been morphed over so that the library has accepted that responsibility. Now, the schools, I think, do have a couple of programs where they try to provide the books. Am I right? That they, if they have copies of the books, they try to make them available to the students. But generally speaking, the public seems to have assumed that we will provide those.
Are we required, but we're not having a book for every child, we're just.
No,
We
no,
can't,
they
we
just,
can't, no.
most people go out and purchase the books, but the library always has a certain amount.
No, I
It's just
understand.
enough to come and rent that, or borrow.
Yes.
I mean, is it ever become a problem where you don't have enough and it's become
Well,
a demand issue?
there are sometimes some dissatisfaction that the preferred copies are not available, but the school provides
Quite
a liberal number of selections.
Right, there's a comprehensive list of books.
And the child may not get his or her first choice, but I think that we can anticipate which ones are going to be the most popular and try to purchase accordingly. And another good thing is that our collection has built over the years, so it's very frequent that titles will continue for a number of years. And thank goodness for that, because we couldn't buy all new copies, all new titles every year. So we have a garage full of required and summer reading materials, and hopefully we can reuse maybe 50–60% of them every year.
Must be pretty regularly.
Well, it depends on the book. The more repeats dinner.
Yeah.
Ms.
Thank
Wilson, I
you.
wouldn't be stepping on the toes of myself and Susan, who staff the copy would.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
How about them? Why is it easy?
Interesting, I know a lot of people have copies of those particular books hanging around their homes. It's too bad you can get them to donate them.
Well, also, there's
Speak up.
Brookdale has a book company that will let the school parents purchase at discounted rates, and they'll actually come to the school to do a discounted. So a lot of people take advantage of buying those books at a discounted rate, so, you know. And like I said, the reading list is very comprehensive, so there should be a book in the library for everyone to have. At least one or two of the choices, yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
Any other questions on my report? Well, we can turn the page to new business.
We have to make a motion to accept the report.
It's getting a little bit late in the year, but we finally got a vendor overdrive to send in the pay-to-play paperwork, so that we can award them a contract for the acquisition of e-books and audiobooks. They are a major vendor and supplier of e-books to the library marketplace. We're part of the consortium, so that the base amount that we pay per year goes into a pool of funds from other libraries. I think there's maybe 40 or 50 libraries in the consortium, so the inventory is expanded by by that because we're all buying in a pooled environment. However, we also purchase additional titles based on demand for our own customers by a special program. We go in and we look and see which items are most requested by Middletown cardholders, and we buy extra copies so that our customers do not have to get in the long queues that you get with the long holds for others. So you've seen the wording on these resolutions before. They were sent an RFP. They responded to that RFP in March, indicating that they would provide these services. We have we need this because it's over 17.5, and that they have certified that they have not contributed or made reportable contributions to the political candidate in Middletown, and the contract would prohibit them from making political contributions during the term of the contract, which is 1 year. So our form of, once this is resolved and passed, is that we send them a purchase order for materials. Like I said, I would say it's about 60-40 now. E-books being the 60% and 40% being the audiobooks. And we have about 1,100 customers, I think, a month that are downloading e-books.
Very well.
Are there questions about this resolution? Does someone want to make the resolution?
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Since we're spending
Roll call.
money, would we do a roll call? Mr. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Breen? Yes. Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Coriano?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Shields?
Yes.
Passes unanimously. We have to withdraw the building contract action for a later time, and we are adding an item, an action item. We have just received today the resignation of an assistant director in Kearns. You've seen a copy of that letter this evening. Is there discussion on that, or just a motion to accept the resignation?
Motion to accept.
Second.
All right, that one's so fast. Any discussion?
Roll call vote.
Roll call, Mr. Seaver?
Yes.
Mr. Monahan?
Yes.
Ms. Breen?
Yes.
Mr. Nelson?
Yes.
Mr. Coriano?
Yes.
Ms. Wilson?
Yes.
Mr. Shields?
Yes.
Passed unanimously. We have our second public session. Is there anyone who wishes to come forward and speak? Ms. Bell? Yes.
Hello,
You're on.
Commissioner Overton. Okay, so a couple questions. There was not a lot of discussion tonight. It's a very quick meeting. There were a couple of things that were mentioned as part of the agenda. No discussion. I kind of missed the days when there was actually discussion about some of the agenda items in front of the public. For example, 2 letters were mentioned, one from a Lincoln resident regarding the Lincoln branch, where I request to keep that day together in my day a week. And there was my letter, which I sent to all of you, requesting that the regular meeting day of this board there be consideration given to changing the meeting day because of the conflicts within the town, specifically the Board of Ed meeting, which, where parents are among the people who might want to attend this meeting as well, and currently they're required to choose between the two meetings. There was also the planning board meeting tonight, the environmental commission, and I think at least one other. So it would be nice, and there's not a lot going on the Tuesday before this meeting or the Thursday after, which would both be good days to consider as an alternative day. So I hope that you would do that. Has there been any consideration for doing that? And if not, making that change this year, perhaps for the following, starting next January when there's a new board?
The calendar of meetings was set in January meeting. There's been no discussion further.
Okay, but there can be. So I'm asking if consideration has been given. The intent would be to better serve the public so that they can get to meetings. I mean, meeting times and dates are changed all the time. It's very doable.
The only issue I would have is if the board is going to do something like that, just to give you as much advance warning as possible, because I do have, well, maybe in the township, Tuesday's a very busy night for boards of ed and zoning and planning boards, so that tends to be a busy night for me. Wednesday, not so much. So if the board were considering something like that, as much advance notice as possible would be appreciated. Otherwise, you may need another lawyer, which may not be,
Thank you.
I was under the impression we received the letter and now we're considering it. That's, right, doesn't know what's going on there?
Ms. Bound, making a statement.
Yeah, and I'm aware that when board members are approached about being on the board before they're appointed, the regular meeting day and time is one of the things that's mentioned as a consideration to make sure that they're free on that night, which is why I mentioned that if it's something that can happen this year, that it be considered starting in January, such that
I can't
Sorry.
remember the Wednesday, so.
okay. All right, well,
You have to address,
put it out there.
you have to address the incoming president at that point.
Okay, but at that point, if the new board members have already been told this is when the meeting is going to be, so it really needs to be done in advance. All right, I put it out there. I understand it may not be a good day for some, but I'm putting it out there. Microphones. There's usually at least one microphone for the board, and there's nothing today. It's actually very difficult to hear you, at least for me. It's a big room, and I know you can probably hear each other, but it's very difficult for them to hear. So I'm asking in the future if you can make sure that there's at least one microphone and that you can please speak up. Individual microphones would be better, but I realize your equipment is limited.
I apologize also, I'm feeling a little under the weather.
But it's not just you, it's very hard to hear almost everybody, except Mr. McConnell.
No,
voice
sure.
varies.
He's trying to.
I'm trained.
And there's something I'm going to bring up. There's kind of an elephant in the room tonight. Nobody seems to want to talk about it. I understand there's a public document that's out there that's very critical, and I think you all know what I'm talking about. Do you want to talk about that? That's very critical of your director and it's coming to town. Do you want to talk about that?
There's no comment from the board at this time.
Okay, and can I ask just one question? I believe that your director received a good review at the end of last year from this board.
The board doesn't discuss employment matters publicly, and particularly not the performance of employees.
Well, I'm asking if a good review was given, and I believe it was. All right, so I'm asking not for discussion going forward, but about history. I'm asking about December, November.
Yeah, as I said, again, I'm not on the board. My strong recommendation is that, and I think everyone here certainly has full confidence in what Susan is doing. Nevertheless, employment evaluations and reviews really isn't something the board should be discussing publicly for obvious reasons. And if there is some public document floating around out there that's critical of anyone, certainly the board wouldn't be in a position to discuss that in a public meeting. I'm sure you can understand why that would be.
The reason I bring this up is because, if you consider even what happened on Monday at the board bed meeting where a contract was not renewed, and the public's asking a lot of questions, and there's an awful lot of decisions like that are being made, and no reasons are being given, and it's kind of against what the public's wishes are. You have good people, and suddenly something happens, and everything's done behind closed doors, and I would discourage you from doing that. And the reason I mentioned that, what this own board's review was, is because it is important for what's going to be going forward. And I hope you keep that in mind. All right?
Certainly.
The public does want to be kept informed. We do care. Thank you.
Employee matters are private, and respect to the employee, I guess primarily.
I
We do not
understand
discuss that publicly. We are not going
understand.
to discuss any employee's performance in a public session.
I understand that. And I'm not really asking you to...
I think you are.
Okay, well, I was asking for, all right,
I'm not going to talk about it.
okay. I guess my point really was that there is a situation.
It's your
If
situation.
there's
We're not
been-
talking about our employees. Move on to the next thing.
if there's been an attack. I just want you to be aware that people care and you want to know what's going on. All right? That's it. Thank you.
My name is Amy DeSantis, Suffolk Lane, Middletown. This is a follow-up. I was very disturbed to get an e-blast sent to my home criticizing the library, and I hope you would probably see the same one. It's probably the same public document that Scott was referring to. My opinion, that was done by the township, because they're the ones who have the email ability to blast out information, not you guys. But I'd like to know if there's any kind of response as the trustees of the library defending everything the library has done.
I don't know what you're referring to.
No, I referred an email blast was sent to
The library fax sheet.
library fax. Right.
Who sent that out? I don't know.
It
I'm
was-
sorry, I don't know.
It was sent out.
Sent out to all citizens on the alert system
Correct.
regarding the library. Yes.
What kind of
Library fax.
information did you have?
Library fax.
And it certainly wasn't something that, relevant to, sorry? Relevant to the Hurricane Sandy coming through, or plowing, or any kind of serious situation like that. Anyway, that concerned me. I was expecting a reply from trustees saying, hey, we're doing a great job, because everybody else doing it. Not personnel, but, okay? A letter of support, saying we're doing a great job here. Just a follow-up to Mr. Nelson's comment about the Board of Education paying for summer reading books. It's just my opinion well, not just, it's my opinion as a citizen, that's ridiculous. We don't ask the fire department to pay for a sprinkler system. So to get the ball rolling on that side, put that the director and the president of the board in a situation where they're asking for money from the Board of Education for those documents is crazy. So I just get that ball rolling.
Go ahead.
My name is Melanie Elmiger. I live on Main Street Terrace in Lincroft. As one of the branch reps, I've kept in touch with the library supporters in Lincroft now that our branch has been closed. Although we are only about 10 weeks past the closing date, the loss of our branch has been a painful adjustment. Now that the book drop-off is closed, we really feel cut off from the main branch. It is a 30-minute round trip ride from Lincroft to the main branch. The distance has become a deterrent to borrowing books. When books are reserved and they are available or due on different dates, this also becomes an inconvenience with multiple trips. One patron suggested a 7-day rental period rather than a 2-day rental period for DVDs that are not current releases. Most patrons I have heard from prefer not to renew an item for the sole reason of not being able to get to the main branch. But often there's no other choice, as the fines incurred could be 25 cents to $1 per day per item, and that adds up quickly. The library is in the business of lending books, and when the borrower feels there is a deterrent to checking out books, such as distance, cost-prohibitive fines, and other inconveniences, it seems to me that they are ruining their business. So I would like to know if this board will discuss and consider ways to connect underserved communities to the main branch.
In regards to the DVD question, you can renew them online up to 4 times, which is actually 8 days.
I think that the people that use the library the most have respect for the other patrons and prefer not to do that because they feel guilty about doing it or feel they're abusing their privilege as taking things out and are uncomfortable with that. That's the feedback I've gotten from people, that they don't like to do that. but they're forced to because in the scope of their day, they can't get here. So it's more of a mindset and a feeling of your certain responsibilities as a patron that you don't want to abuse. So I guess, I know in the discussions when we were closing the branches, there were some ideas tossed around about how to keep connected with the Navasink group, how to keep connected with the Lincroft group, because we are so far from the main branch, and I hope that this board going forward will continue to keep that discussion open and come up with innovative ideas for outreach that can help what amounts to underserved areas. I was also wondering if there's been any work on the strategic plan. There's been so much talk about cutting expenses. It just seems like it's the perfect time to develop a strategic plan to meet goals and revise everything that was written before the transfer of funds.
I can comment on that
Oh.
because you don't want me to,
We haven't scheduled a meeting yet, we will be in the near future.
but the library staff have been involved in reviewing and updating the plan. There have been 3 staff meetings. I have over 10 employees who are working on various aspects of updating it before it passes to the strategic plan committee and the board.
Okay. Will that be within the month or so?
I would say a month or so. We are finding that so much has happened that there are, we have to document what we achieved, what's still viable, and then start to brainstorm about the future and things that aren't in the plan. So it is a multi-layer process, and people are being given assignments to work on them, and it is an active activity going on.
Have the Lincroft teachers been asked to remove assets from the Lincroft branch?
No, due to the press of business, I've not been able to schedule the time. I believe that my plan is to have 2 to 3 days next week when they can visit the library for that purpose.
And they will get preference over Seabright?
I'm sorry.
You had said Seabright, you would be giving some assets to Seabright?
Absolutely, absolutely. It would be open to Middletown public school teachers.
Okay. Oh, all school teachers in Middletown, not just
Well,
Lincroft?
I think
There
are other schools, I think, in that general service area, that Thorne and
Thompson?
Swamp School and, did I say Thompson? And I mean, I can't make it exclusively Lincroft, but, I could, but my inclination is to probably give them first pick and then have the others for several days as well.
I liked Mrs. Breen's idea about asking the public for copies of some of the summer reading books, even if you had a display with pictures of the books, copies, where people come in, hey, I have that copy at home, I can bring that in and donate it, because a lot of people that are engaged in the summer reading program do purchase the books because they are unable to get them, especially when they wait for the last minute. And the other question I had is the e-books versus the rental collection. Are the same books being purchased in the e-books? Are those the same books that are being presented in the rental collection? Like, is there overlap? Are the same titles in both places where people are going to prefer the e-book, which is free, right, over paying for the rental?
I think that the emphasis of the rental collection is on current, brand new fiction in demand. The e-book purchases extend for both children, teen, and adult purchases, include fiction and nonfiction. So there's a broader spectrum in the e-book acquisitions than in the rental collection. It's very narrowly focused on high demand fiction.
The rental collection?
Yes.
So the e-books doesn't have...
Well, it does, but e-books are strongly controlled by the publishers themselves, and there are a significant number of major players in publishers that do not sell ebooks to libraries. So the selection is a little more limited there than it is in the print version.
So someone could come in and rent one of the books and it could be available on an ebook then?
Absolutely. You could have,
Or there could be a loan.
a brand new book could be available in hardback for free, essentially without any charges, as a rental, as an audio book, as an ebook, or as a large print book.
And then my last comment is, the agenda is just not detailed enough, because I could have asked that question related to that purchase voucher and not taking their time now, and I would have known that then. I just feel like a lot of times on the agenda, we have no idea what that means. I read it, it's kind of cryptic. So I was wondering if any enhancement can be given on the descriptions of agenda items, just to be clear. I didn't even really know what that word meant. I thought it had to do with the firewall, to be honest. That word, I wasn't familiar with the word with the ebooks. So thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Going once, going twice. No, for the record, no one else would like to speak from the public.
I just in response to that, very briefly. Because there needs to be a dialogue, and there needs to be, in terms of the strategic plan of what this board does moving forward. We need to have a clear set of priorities in terms of what our core essential services are and what we are providing to the community. As these ratables change, we're going to have to reassess what those core services are. We're going to have to figure out what the core services are that we're going to continue to provide to the community as our obligation as a library, and what services are not core services that we need to trim back on, but that we need to charge for. And that's not fun, prioritizing those things, but it's work that this board has to do because the financial circumstances dictate that we do that. Responding to a blast email does not help us serve that function. We're trying to figure out, and I take the responsibility I have on this board very seriously, the adversarial nature of the meetings in terms of the closing of the branches was very regrettable but understandable. It was tragic those branches were closed. The adversarial nature in terms of what always is an undercurrent to these meetings, I think between this board and the township committee, is unacceptable to me. No one should be responding to blast emails about employees. No one should be getting on internet boards and vilifying people and saying that their agendas. We're here to serve the community. The township committee is there to serve the community. The public wants us to serve the community. We shouldn't hold hands and sing kumbaya, but help us in these core functions and don't fuel this conflict, which is not helpful at all. We need a good strategic plan. We need to prioritize because we can't cut short, as Mr. Gordiano expressed at the April 17th meeting. You can't sneak up on us. We're all of a sudden we're short money again, and we need to make these drastic decisions. Help us with the strategic plan. We want feedback to do that, but stop the nonsense because it doesn't work. That's all I want to say.
Could I just clarify something?
Absolutely.
Two different issues. The blast email, what she was referring to was something that was months ago. The issue I was speaking of was different. Two different things.
I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's disgusting.
Excuse me?
It's disgusting.
Discussion, any motions?
Motion to adjourn.
I can't go home this early.